Well, sticking on the topic of Netflix, and right now they're on a path to acquiring Warner Brothers. Again, the big wrench could be thrown in this if Paramount is able to gain any ground in a hostile takeover. I don't think they will, but you never know. But for now, Netflix continues on with the process. It's going to be a year-long process of them acquiring and getting Warner Brothers. One of the big fears that everybody, and I, chief of which include myself in this, has been really worried about Netflix getting Warner Brothers is, what does this mean for the future of theatrical releases? Now, in recent days, Ted Sarandos and the other executives at Netflix have made comments kind of suggesting that they want to keep Warner Brothers not only intact, but they want to keep their theatrical model. I and others have expressed some dubiousness about the authenticity of Ted Sarandos's words and the trustworthiness of his words. But they're now doubling down. And Ted Sarandos has just come out and is saying things like, listen, we bought into this for the value that it is. We want in the theatrical business. Really? Anyway, this comes to us from Deadline. We are deeply committed to releasing those movies. He was talking about movies like Sinners, like Minecraft, like what's the horror one that we just love so much?
Weapons.
Oh yeah. He was mentioning all these. He goes, we are deeply committed to releasing those movies exactly the way they would have released those movies today, said Sarandos, about staying true to the theatrical model once the streamer snaps up the 102-year-old motion picture studio. Now, I'm going to read this a little bit at length, but I think it's worth it because there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. All three of these new businesses that we want to keep operating largely as they are, he added, specifying that the other two are Warner's TV production and HBO and the Warner Brothers movie production. He said, we're acquiring three new businesses. The theatrical business, we talked about a lot in the past about wanting to do it because we've never been in that business. And they've never wanted Netflix to be in the business. When this deal closes, we are in that business and we're going to do it. To date, Netflix has used theatrical as a means to qualify movies for Oscars via limited releases and unreported grosses. Technically, its first wide release of north of 1,000 theaters was the late August two-day play of K-pop Demon Hunters. The movie played all circuits except for the number one chain AMC Theaters and made $19 million in 2 days, ranking as Netflix's first number one title at the weekend domestic box office. Since Netflix won the bid for Warner Brothers, which doesn't include linear networks, Sarandos hasn't given an exact number when it comes to days for films in an exclusive theatrical window. On Friday, he said he's likely to see the window evolve. Today, he's changed that tune. If we did this deal 24 months ago, all those movies we saw this year do so well for Warner Brothers would have been released in the same way in theaters. I'm talking about Minecraft. I'm talking about Superman. I'm talking about Weapons. I'm talking about Sinners. And the executive who cut his teeth in home video referring to Warner Brothers' strong $4 billion box office. These movies will be released on Netflix through theaters the way Warner Brothers did it before. But with the Warner Brothers operating entity, it's really important the way they create, the way they drive value. We didn't buy this company. Get this. We did not buy this company to destroy that value. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, he goes on and talks about the fact, and he breaks down again the idea that there are two different things. Netflix is still going to be Netflix. Netflix is going to take some of their movies, give them like 14-day windows, give them Oscar qualifying runs, all that kind of stuff. But he is firmly doubling down here and saying, guys, listen to me. We are going to keep Warner Brothers the way it is. We are now in the theater business. We are going to have these 45-day theatrical windows for their movies, not our Netflix films. We're going to do this. We think there's value in that. And we didn't spend $82 billion just to come in and wreck something. That's not our plan. We already know and found out they're keeping DeLuca and Abdi. They're keeping James Gunn. These people know how to make these theatrical movies, and we want them on our side. They're going to do it, and they're going to go. Now, look, there are people out there, and I know this because I was one of them. I admit it, fully admit it. There are people out there, and I was one of them at one point that thought, The only reason Netflix is going after Warner Brothers is because they just want to kill the theater industry. That's what they want to do. I believed that for a bit. I did. But here's the thing. A friend of mine asked me, okay, John, you're not really believing what Ted Sandros is saying. I said, right. What's his ulterior motive? And I thought about it. Like, what's he trying to accomplish then? And the only thing I could come up with was ultimately he just wants to destroy the theaters. He wants to destroy movie theaters. Here's the problem with that flawed logic that was in my head and that other people still have. If Netflix, take a look at this. If Netflix wanted to destroy the movie theaters, okay. You know what AMC Theaters is worth right now? $1.2 billion. That's what AMC Theaters' market cap is right now. These are the 5 biggest movie theater chains in North America, by the way. Cineworld, the company that owns Regal, they are worth $1.5 billion. Cinemark is actually the 3rd biggest, but they're worth the most. They're worth right now $2.7 billion. Cineplex, the Canadian movie theater chain, right now is worth $510 million. And Marcus Theaters is worth $475 million. These are the 5 biggest theater chains. Their combined value is $6.38 billion. In other words, the combined value of the 5 largest North American movie theater chains is 8% of what Netflix is spending to buy Warner Brothers. If Netflix just wanted to kill the movie theater industry, guess what, kiddos? We live in a post-Paramount decrees world. It's no longer, as of about 5 years ago, it's no longer illegal for a movie studio to buy and own a movie theater. They can do it. Any studio can do it now. It was a rule for decades and decades and decades for anti-competition purposes. It was called the Paramount Decrees, that a movie studio could not buy and own a movie theater chain. But guess what? That's not the case now. If Netflix just straight up wanted to kill the movie theaters, instead of spending $82.7 billion to buy Warner Brothers, they could have spent $6.3 billion, 8% of it, and bought all the biggest movie theater chains and just said, yeah, we're just going to show reruns of the Little Rascals 24/7 now in these theaters until we run them out of business. That's what they would have done. They would have spent $82 billion to get into a business that they don't want to be into. And so I got to say, I have to admit, I'm starting to come around to believing that Ted Sarandos wants to keep Netflix just the way Netflix is. It's not a theatrical company. It's not a whatever company. This is what we do. This is how we do it at Netflix. But I think he actually does want in the movie theater business. It can't be Netflix, but it can be Warner Brothers. And then, as I've been saying they should do for weeks, you take the Warner Brothers movies, you put them in theaters, you give them actual theatrical runs, and then you bring them into Netflix and have huge launches for them and huge streaming numbers on Netflix. That's the game plan. That's the path to winning if they're smart enough to do it. Rob, listen, I'm not going to pretend that I don't still have some major apprehensions about this whole thing. My number one choice, as I know is yours, is that Warner Brothers would just stay as an independent company and not be bought by anybody. That is obviously my number one choice. But I have to say, the more I look at the numbers and the more I look at least what they're saying, whether they can be trusted or not, it's making more sense to me. It's making more sense to me that there could be more potential upside to all this. And I'm not going to say all my worries are alleviated. They're not, but some of them are. Some of my worries are alleviating right now. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Aura. Guys, if you are anything like me, you swear every year you're going to be on top of your Christmas shopping, and then suddenly it's December 20th, the shelves are empty, and you're standing around in Target asking yourself, does my aunt even like candles? But this year, I am not doing that because of Aura Frames. It's completely saved me. See, I always struggled with what to get people in my life, but this year I'm going to give out a couple of Aura Frames, and it's hands down the most personal, meaningful gift that I can possibly give. And here's the best part. Aura lets you upload unlimited photos and videos. Plus, the frame comes in a premium gift box with no price tag, so it feels like a classy, well thought out gift, even if you bought it last minute. Guys, you can't gift wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code CAMPEA at the checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code Campea. This deal is exclusive to our listeners and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in on time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning that we sent you at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Anyway, Rob, you read this article in this interview with Ted Sarandos. You're looking at the numbers, all this kind of stuff. What's your takeaway from the things he's saying here?
Well, I mean, I'd like to believe him. I mean, I know that there's a lot of things that he said in the past that he contradicts himself later, but it makes sense to me. I think the thing that makes the most sense is what he said about we're not spending $80 million or $80 billion on something only to dismantle it. He's not Gordon Gekkoing Warner Brothers, buying it to break it up.
Right.
You know, he's not doing that. What he sees it as is in a way, for him, I'm sure making movies at Netflix is a headache. I'm sure like the creatives and using analytics and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't and what makes something good and what doesn't. I don't think they have the people over there that are experienced enough to know. I think what you're getting with Warner Brothers is certainly in Mike DeLuca, you have an executive who's been trained since the 80s. You know, he worked at New Line. Hell, he wrote John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. And so you've got a guy in DeLuca who has seen franchises made with Freddie and franchises unmade with Texas Chainsaw. He saw Lord of the Rings happen. He saw the Rush Hour movies happen. He's seen, there's nobody that is employed by Netflix that's even remotely close to having the experience that Mike DeLuca has. So knowing that Ted Sarandos probably can breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that he's putting this crown jewel where you're going to be getting all kinds of movies that are made that are probably going to be better, and the budgets are going to be watched over closer than we've been watching budgets for sure. Like he doesn't have to sit there and go, Warner Brothers is not going to spend $300 million on a movie.
No, I get your point. DeLuca and Abney just recently turned down Tom Cruise for something he wanted to, because they're like, guy, you can't spend that much money on a project.
Because with Netflix, they don't care how much money they spend on a movie because they're not getting any money back. Where Warner Brothers is like, yeah, we care.
We need to be profitable.
They've got to make their movies profitable. So for Netflix, I think it's a good move because they can fob off all these bad decisions they've made in terms of the movies they've been making. And now they're like, you know what? Warner Brothers, go to Warner Brothers. Go over there. And Warner Brothers is going to have a crack team of people. Warner Brothers is like having SEAL Team 6 in place to make, if you want to put it in military terms, to take care of the country that is Netflix. You've got this team that's going to go out there and they know how to make movies. Man, we'll make you a $55 million movie that grosses $500 million at the box office, and then we'll give it to you to put on your streaming
which
service.
Will have a huge explosion on your streaming service.
And that would be The Conjuring Last Rites. They did that this year, and so you're going to get that movie. And that's what we're going to make you $38 million. We're going to make weapons. You think the weapons going on Netflix isn't going to get the Stranger Things crowd to watch endlessly? Hell yeah, it will. I mean, it's a great move if they keep it that way.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. You raise a really good point about this. Explains a lot about them historically, because I think what we're starting to realize and recognize here is that Ted Sarandos has always been very keenly aware that Netflix is not capable of having an actual good, thriving movie business. They don't have the experience. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the personnel. They just don't. And so they've always kind of leaned away from it and put out a whole bunch of crap and played a numbers game and putting out. But he sees the opportunity. If we can just acquire Warner Brothers, and we're getting Abdi and DeLuca and James Gunn and Warner Brothers' infrastructure and their networks and their distribution arms and all of that stuff as a package, now we're in business. Because as Netflix, we were never capable of doing that. But if we buy Warner Brothers, we now are.
And I'll tell you something else I think that he's thinking of in long term. In the next 10 years, with where AI is going, you're going to have as much AI motion pictures made by, it's all going to be user-generated content. Will it be good? Don't know. But the technology is going to be there that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to start making their own feature films. But there's going to be a demand to see excellence. It still takes talent and knowledge. And Warner Brothers has 100 years, and Netflix is going to have a place that they're going to have a place where all the best content is still being made. They're going to have their studio, which is Warner Brothers. And while everyone else, every person in the world is going to start using AI to generate their own movies, from soup to nuts, you're still going to need somebody that shows everybody how it's done. And that's what they've done. I think they're insulating themselves for the onslaught of what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years based on AI and user-generated content. And I think that's a smart move too, because you're going to have YouTube is going to be full of feature films that people have made. It's going to be insane. We have no idea what's about to
We're
happen.
getting off topic though here. We're going into an
But I
entirely
do think
different
that
topic.
that's what he's done. He's insulating himself for the next 10 or 20 years by having a studio that knows how to make movies.
And knows how to distribute them and,
Yes.
and knows how to manage them and has the personnel and the experience, something that Netflix has never had. And so, again, I'm not saying I'm now raw Netflix by Warner Brothers. I'm not. But I am saying it's starting to create a clearer picture for me here. And I'm starting to see a way forward that it can actually work. So, I don't know.
And also the other choice, Skydance and Paramount, has done, I think, some really skeezy things. That letter they wrote, the fact that they've got Jared Kushner and the Saudis backing their play to buy that doesn't really sit well with me.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but that's outside of the scope
Yeah,
of the
course.
movie. But now we're getting into the personal political feelings.
Well, no, but I mean, in terms of what they want it for, it's like, are they still going to make movies? I'm like, I want Skydance and Paramount to thrive. I want Paramount, the mountain, to come back. And yet, let's focus on that, boys. Why do you need Warner
That's
Brothers?
been my biggest thing about Ellison and Paramount. It has been, hey, listen, you just got Paramount. I think you got some really cool vision for it.
Yeah.
How about you just make Paramount into a great studio first? How about you put out one bloody movie?
And
then maybe worry about expanding into another studio later.
They've made all kinds of great alliances with people, like the Duffer Brothers being one. They brought all these great filmmakers. Let's see some great output from Paramount. Let's see Paramount have the luster they had when they were making bangers in the 80s, like Beverly Hills Cop and Fatal Attraction and Hunt for Red October in 1990.
All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? In what on the surface looks like a complete 180 in philosophy for Netflix, they're saying, no, we really do want to be in the theatrical business, and we're in the theatrical business now. It seems very odd, but when you think about it, I mean, it's just an admission that they never could do it before, and now they can. And maybe they figured out a way how they can profit from all this. Optimistic? Maybe, but I'm trying to be optimistic. Whatever you guys think about this whole thing, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. By the way, as an aside, I do want to put it, I've seen a lot of people putting in comments, just like I have, comments that I've made before of, I'm like, for instance, Stavros is saying, I'm not buying this, or there's no reason to trust Sarandos. Here's the question that I posed to myself and I would pose to you. Okay, give me what his actual motive is then. What's his actual motive? It's not just to kill the movie theaters, because he could just easily spend $6 billion and just buy out all the movie theaters and shut them down.
Yeah.
So what is, if he's lying, what's his motivation? What is he actually after? He's not spending $82 billion just to get some content on Netflix from HBO. That's not worth $82 billion. So if you're choosing not to believe him, believe me, I can understand that. But I'm saying, the same question I posed to myself, I posed to you. then what is his actual motivation? What is he spending $87.2 billion on if it's not to build this business that he's saying he is? I can't think of a more profitable thing that he's doing with that $82 billion. Anyway, guys, whatever you think, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.